This is the Mop Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. During a campaign stop in Grand Rapids, Michigan in 2024, Donald Trump told voters, "I will stop the chaos in the Middle East. I will prevent World War III." That was in 2024. Red Crescent reports this morning the Iranian death toll is now up to 787. The U.S. And Israeli military say they have hit Iran's presidential office this morning. They're going after the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, who survived Saturday's assault on the Ayatollah Khamenei's compound. This is the Mop Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thanks for finding me. There's a lot to go over in this age of the 4-hour news cycle. Operation Epic Fury, Trump's illegal bombing campaign, enters its fourth day. As of this moment, 6 United States soldiers have been killed in Kuwait. We don't know the exact details. The Washington Post reporting this morning that we know that 3 were killed by Iranian rocket fire. Donald Trump is having a tough time selling this war. A new CNN poll out this morning saying 39% of Americans believe Trump, with his negotiating team of Jared Kushner and real estate lawyer Stephen Witkoff, they abandoned talks with Iran too soon. That's what 39% of Americans are saying. That was last Thursday when the negotiating team abandoned the talks in Geneva. There was a time when war polled well. When a president wanted to boost sagging numbers, he'd bomb someone. Doesn't seem to work anymore. Americans are tired of this. 54% say these airstrikes make America less safe, with only 29% telling CNN that this war in Iran makes that country less of a threat. If you're wondering how this all plays out, I suspect Trump will do what he did after bombing the Houthis in Yemen, after going into Venezuela, grabbing Maduro, or like he did last year when he bombed Iran. I think he's going to declare victory and leave. So only 12% of Americans support sending ground troops into Iran. I've been wrong about many things, but I suspect Trump couldn't care less if Iran turns into a failed state with sectarian violence, like after we broke Iraq. I suspect he and Netanyahu would prefer Iranians fighting among themselves, like in Syria or Lebanon, so they won't have time to fight Israel or American interests in the Persian Gulf. I think Trump will eventually do what he always does and blame the victim. He will blame the Iranian people. He'll say, "We bombed Iran for you. We killed the Ayatollah for you, but the Iranian people choose instead to fight among themselves instead of creating a lasting democracy." I think that's the plan, just to leave Iran to fight among themselves. I'll get to more about the war later on. Today is also when the midterms kick into gear as Republican and Democratic voters in Texas cast their ballots to nominate candidates for governor, senator, House of Representatives, as well as Texas state legislative and local races. We'll get to that. And then there's the Epstein files. The Republican-controlled House Oversight Committee has been charged with looking into the role Democrats and only Democrats played in protecting and financing the billionaire pedophile. Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Jim Comer, says Trump is completely exonerated. And instead, he's forced Bill and Hillary Clinton to testify. That was last week. Why? Why were they forced to testify? Why did Bill and Hillary have to testify? Because the FBI interviewed a woman 4 times as recently as 2019, and she claims to have been sexually assaulted at the age of 14 by Donald Trump. There is not a single allegation in the Epstein files against Bill Clinton. There are multiple allegations against Donald Trump. That's Donald Trump standing next to Jeffrey Epstein, and in between them is Ivana, barely 12, She's about to present Donald with a World's Greatest Dad coffee mug for Father's Day. So this is why the Clintons were dragged before the Republican-controlled Epstein committee. On Monday, the committee released unedited video and transcripts from the Clintons' testimony. I will get to that momentarily. There's also the issue of Kristi Noem, our head of Homeland Security, who testifies before the Senate Judiciary Committee today and the House Judiciary Committee tomorrow. To give you a preview of what to expect, here is Kristi Noem testifying before the Senate Homeland Security Committee in May of last year. Senator Maggie Hassan, the Democrat from New Hampshire, asked Kristi Noem a very simple question. What does habeas corpus mean? To give you an idea of how stupid and worthless Kristi Noem is, listen carefully as she says President Lincoln used habeas corpus. No, he suspended habeas corpus during the Civil War. Habeas corpus dates back to the Magna Carta. It's one of the foundational principles of Western law. No person can be jailed by the state without going before a judge and being told why they're being detained. And most importantly, habeas corpus provides everyone, citizen and non-citizen, the right to a lawyer to challenge that detention. Enjoy this worthless piece of excrement's testimony. Here is Kristi Noem.
So, Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas
right
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
President
habeas
Lincoln
corpus,
used it.
Like I said, Kristi Noem is not just a worthless piece of excrement. She's a murderous piece of excrement. And by the time most of you hear this, she will have already testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee and made such an ass out of herself, Trump will have no choice but to nominate her to sit on the Supreme Court. So there's a lot to get to this morning. I think we should ease into everything, talking about a new book that's about to come out in May. It's written by Julia Ainsley. It's called Leaked. Leaked, and no, it's not about Donald Trump's diaper. It's about another pile of crap. Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, Corey Lewandowski, Tom Homan, and their illegal mass deportation program. You're all familiar with the thousands of court orders the Department of Homeland Security ignores. That's in the book. Excerpts were printed in The Atlantic magazine. But since a little later on, I'm going to be talking about the illegal attack on Iran, which is depressing, I've chosen to ease into things with some new reporting about love. In a time of war, we need lovers like Kristi Noem and her de facto chief of staff, Corey Lewandowski. As you know, I'm obsessed with love, so I follow these two hate birds, especially since they're not married. And their rancid love affair has been called by New York Magazine the worst kept secret in Washington, D.C. You know, like Lindsey Graham's worst kept secret. Remember I told you about how Corey and Kristi fly around the country in one of the two private jets the Department of Homeland Security purchased for their personal use. Each one costs at least $100 million. Each jet has a suite of rooms in the back, a cabin with private showers, and a bed, one bed, which the two of them allegedly share. Remember I told you about the Coast Guard pilot who Corey Lewandowski fired, allegedly, because the pilot was supposed to bring all Kristi and Corey's belongings to the limo, but the pilot forgot Kristi's favorite blanket, so Corey Lewandowski flipped out and fired the pilot? Remember that? Well, it turns out it wasn't a blanket. That was the cover story, at least according to the Daily Beast. I'll tell you what it really was in a second. In the meantime, try to guess. Wasn't a blanket. What do you think it was? Well, according to this book, Leaked, Corey Lewandowski is handing out multi-million-dollar contracts to Department of Homeland Security vendors, deciding who gets what. He's not even allowed to be working for the government right now since he has failed to disclose his financials. He's still listed as a special government employee, which means he's only allowed to work 130 days a year, but he's working full-time, breaking the law. And from what I understand, he's also breaking a couple of headboards inside those private jets that he's sharing with Kristi, if you know what I mean. And if you don't know what I mean, Corey Lewandowski, who was arrested by Jupiter, Florida police for physically assaulting a female reporter, Corey Lewandowski, who has been accused of both sexual assault and sexual harassment by several other women, well, Corey Lewandowski is rumored to be having adulterous, unmarried, cheating heart, penile groinal sex with Kristi Noem. That's what we hear. That's what they say. And according to this book, they're impossible to work for. What a surprise. According to the book Leaked, top officials from ICE say during meetings they're too frightened to speak up for fear of getting dressed down from either Kristi or Corey, who then go back to their office and dress each other down while having alleged penile groinal adulterous sex, allegedly not married to each other, but married to other people. Let me give you an idea how disgusting Kristi Noem is. According to the book Leaked, Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, this is according to the book Leaked, Stephen Miller, of all people, is personally repelled by Kristi Noem. And he's married, Stephen Miller is married to this Meskite, Katie Miller. The guy, Stephen Miller, who shares a bed with that hideous monstrosity, Katie Miller, even he finds Kristi Noem too disgusting. Look at this couple, the grotesque Stephen Miller and Drizella's ugly stepsister, Katie Miller. What an ugly, ugly couple. Here they are on date night, visiting their favorite after-hours slaughterhouse. Ah, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, so glad to see you. Your favorite gurney awaits you. 1 or 2 bone saws tonight. Even Stephen Miller, the most disgusting person on the planet, finds Kristi Noem repulsive, according to this book, Leaked. So why does Stephen Miller find Kristi Noem repulsive? Because he doesn't approve of her affair with Corey Lewandowski. Stephen Miller doesn't approve of adultery. Yes, the guy who invented the policy where mothers are separated from their children thinks adultery is an affront to his family values. Stephen Miller believes in monogamy. That's according to the book. Stephen Miller has openly said he doesn't believe married couples should cheat. Like Stephen Miller and Katie Miller have a choice. Like there are any options other than each other. Even blind people say they can smell how ugly Stephen and Katie Miller are. That's how ugly Stephen and Katie Miller are. Their ugliness has its own rancid odor. Stephen and Katie Miller leave a room and the stench of their ugliness lingers for days. Stephen Miller believes in monogamy. Like any other turtle on this planet would let him fertilize her eggs. Katie Miller is the only turtle on this planet that would allow him to fertilize her eggs. The thought of Stephen Miller and Katie Miller cheating with somebody else, what grotesquerie lurks in the shadows, willing to have sex with these two moral deformities? The answer? J.D. Vance and his wife, Usha. Anyway, according to the book Leaked, which is out in May, Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski don't even try to hide their adulterous, penile, groinal sex. Zero discretion, according to the book. One Trump White House official told the author of Leaked, oh yeah, they're still effing, but he said the word. Why do they keep effing? Because Corey Lewandowski and Kristi Noem are all about love. Lewandowski, according to the book Leaked, believes Alligator Alcatraz down in Florida is the gold standard for how all detention centers should be run. Flies, open toilets that don't work, no heat, no air conditioner. He says the crueler, the better. So, anyway, have you guessed what it was? I told you it wasn't the blanket. That was the cover story. Remember, according to the Daily Beast reporting on this new book Leaked, the blanket was a cover story, right? Corey and Kristi were on a Coast Guard flight. The pilot got fired because he didn't bring Kristi's quote-unquote blanket to the limo. He left it on the plane. It wasn't her blanket. That's a cover story. According to the book, according to the Daily Beast, it was her bag of sex toys. Not her sex toy, her bag of sex toys. And it was Corey Lewandowski who fired the pilot for allegedly not bringing Kristi Noem's bag of sex toys. Instead, she left them on the plane. Remember, last Easter, she left her other bag with $4,000 in it while she was having her family dinner. Remember that? She can't keep track of her bags. She lost her bag of sex toys this time. And why would Corey Lewandowski be so upset? Well, I mean, there's nothing shameful about a bag. Nothing shameful about your wife, or not your wife, your mistress needing a bag, needing Santa's bag of sex toys. Why would that humiliate Corey Lewandowski? Why would he fire the pilot over Kristi Noem's alleged Santa's bag of sex toys? I mean, I wonder which specific toy Corey Lewandowski would be so ashamed of that the pilot would get fired. Which toy do you think it is? I think I know which toy it is, and it might explain why Corey Lewandowski's favorite Steely Dan song is Peg. Peg. Look at this picture of Corey Lewandowski. Doesn't it? He's saying, Peg, peg me. Look, he's got his back turned, and then he's tilting his head, presenting towards Kristi Noem with her Santa's bag of sex toys and asking her coyishly, Peg? Trump is also reportedly repulsed by Corey Lewandowski and Kristi Noem. Why? Well, I'm not making this up. According to the book Leaked, Trump finds Corey Lewandowski and Kristi Noem disgusting because during a meeting, he once caught them sipping from the same can of Coke. And he told people after they left, that's repugnant. Two people married to two other people sharing the same can of Coke. Trump doesn't approve. Unprotected sex with a porn star just weeks after your wife gave you a son, that's the height of marital decorum, according to Donald Trump. I mean, come on. What are you going to bring back to your marriage? Having unprotected sex with a porn star. Perfectly harmless. But sharing the same can of Coke with a woman you're not married to? Who does Corey Lewandowski think he is? Don Draper from Mad Men? Get rid of him, says Trump. Disgusting. That was the bridge too far, sharing a Coke can. Well, speaking of extramarital sex, this is a picture of Bill and Hillary Clinton back in Yale Law School. That was back when Hillary was a Republican. Like I always say, people never change. I'm kidding. She could be a Republican still. Look, neither one of them, Bill or Hillary, neither one of them were my first or 50th choice for president. But I voted for both of them because when it's 3 a.m. at the Waffle House, you order the waffles. Word is that Hillary Clinton is the brains in this marriage. So look, they've been through a lot, and they're still married. How many people can say that? I can't. My marriages didn't last. Bill and Hillary, still married. Remember this excruciating long kiss Al and Tipper Gore exchanged at the Democratic National Convention in August of 2000? Some of you are too young, but Al Gore was Bill Clinton's vice president. And in 2000, Al Gore was nominated to be president. That was his turn to step out of the shadows after spending 8 years being Bill Clinton's wingman and apologizing for his indiscretions. Al Gore was very mad at Bill Clinton for that whole Monica Lewinsky thing. So to prove he was his own man, to prove that I might be Bill Clinton's vice president, but I'm not Bill Clinton, Al Gore took to the stage to accept his party's nomination, and he and his wife Tipper swapped spit and acid reflux residue. That was a long kiss. They kept going. They were kissing and kissing in front of a cheering crowd, millions of people at home, children, witnessing this public display of affectation. It was a public display of affectation, not affection, a public display of affectation. Before delivering his speech, Al and Tipper sucked face because they wanted the world to know that's the only thing this president will ever get sucked. The message was, I, Al Gore, unlike Bill Clinton, I, Al Gore, I'm happily married and I won't disgrace the Oval Office the way Bill Clinton did. And because Al Gore was so mad at Bill Clinton's cheating heart, Al Gore never asked Bill to campaign with him. Never asked Bill to campaign in Arkansas, which they carried in 92 and 96. Never asked him to help pick up some states in the South. No, Al Gore, with his daddy issues, said, I want to prove I can do it all by myself, especially since I'm disgusted by what went on in the Oval Office between Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. Funny thing, though, America didn't feel the same way about Bill Clinton as Al Gore and his wife Tipper did. In fact, Bill Clinton had an approval rating of 60% when Al Gore decided, I'm not going to ask Bill to campaign for me. And then Al Gore went on to lose the election that should have been a landslide. That election should never have been close. He didn't actually lose. It was stolen from him by the Supreme Court. I mean, Al Gore did win the popular vote, and then Jeb Bush stole Florida for his brother. But here's the thing about Al Gore. All he had to do was win his home state of Tennessee. He didn't need to win Florida. He needed to win Tennessee. He could have lost Florida, All Al Gore had to do was win his home state of Tennessee the way Clinton and he won it in 92 and 96. No, he didn't win Tennessee. And he lost Florida by only 576 votes. He would have won Florida had he done a statewide recount. Instead of demanding recounts in only the counties he was sure he was going to win, had he done the noble thing and demanded a statewide recount, he would have won. But that's for another show. The point is, if Bill Clinton campaigned for Al Gore in 2000, Al Gore would have most definitely won Tennessee. He wouldn't have needed Florida, but if Bill Clinton, with his more than 60% approval rating, was campaigning for Al Gore, he probably would have won Florida, maybe by a landslide. But Al Gore couldn't allow that because Bill Clinton cheated on his wife, and Al and Tipper didn't approve. Marriages are a funny thing. They're also an arrangement, and it's nobody's business. Hillary Clinton is a brilliant woman. She knew who she was marrying. Each marriage is different. What one person wouldn't put up with, another one will. And the Clintons, they're still married. I'm not. They're still married. Tipper and Al Gore. Well, contrary to what most people think, Tipper and Al Gore are not divorced. They are legally separated. They've been legally separated since 2010. But Al Gore is in an open relationship with another woman, an environmentalist and a big Democratic donor. They show up at the Cannes Film Festival together. They're at parties and events. It's okay because he's legally separated, but not divorced. Makes me wonder, what kind of woman gets into a relationship with a man who won't divorce his wife? I mean, sure, he's separated, but if Al Gore doesn't divorce Tipper, Al's never going to marry this woman. But you know what? I shouldn't judge. I'm starting to sound like Al and Tipper Gore. I'm not going to judge. It's nobody's business. I remember that kiss. It was such a self-righteous, holier-than-thou slap in the faith and face of Bill and Hillary, especially after poor Bill and Hillary spent 8 years getting dragged through the mud. I found that kiss to be an affront. It was ingratitude to Bill and Hillary. So you know what? I'm glad Al Gore ended up losing to George W. Bush because of that kiss. Sure, millions were killed in Iraq, thousands died in New Orleans, and Bush killed capitalism during his final year in office. But to me, it was all worth it just so Al Gore paid a price for being such a pompous scold, working overtime for the morality police. Okay, I voted for Gore, and he would have been a great president. He really would have. Probably better than Clinton. I mean, he, Inconvenient Truth, one of my favorite movies. He was talking about global warming before anybody else. But that kiss. Anyway, Bill Clinton had to testify about his friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein last week. And the House Oversight Committee released the tapes and the transcripts yesterday. Why did Bill testify? He said, quote, "I'll be 80 years old if I live by my next birthday." In other words, if Hillary doesn't kill me first. He said, "I don't remember everything that happened 24 years ago, but I do remember some things. I will tell you what I remember as best I can." This was how he explained why he agreed to cooperate and not plead the Fifth. He was subpoenaed. He would have suffered contempt of Congress, but he could have pled the Fifth. I think he could have pled the Fifth. Are you allowed to plead? You may not be allowed to plead the Fifth when No, but what's her name did? Ghislaine pled the Fifth. So maybe you are allowed to plead the Fifth. I don't know. Leave a comment. I don't know. I don't think you're allowed to. I think you are allowed to plead the Fifth. Let me just keep saying, are you allowed to plead the Fifth? I don't know. Let me just keep repeating that over and over again for an hour. So, Clinton was asked, why are you testifying? And he said, America was built on the idea that no one is above the law, especially presidents. The girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not justice, but healing. He said they've been waiting too long for both. Clinton was then asked how he came to know Jeffrey Epstein. Clinton said he was introduced to Epstein by this turd, the former president of Harvard and Clinton's Secretary of the Treasury, the odious Larry Summers, seen here with Jeffrey Epstein. You might remember the Epstein dump before last. There have been several Epstein dumps. The Epstein dump before the one that happened at the end of January. The dump before that revealed a series of emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Larry Summers, where Summers is seeking advice from Jeffrey Epstein on how to cheat on his wife. Summers' wife, not Epstein's wife. Epstein was never married. Larry Summers was trying to sleep with a woman he was mentoring, and Epstein was coaching him. That's Larry Summers and his wife, the one he cheated on. They're still married. Al and Tipper Gore separated. Now, look, I don't want to judge, and I should get to the war and Texas, but and I like Al Gore, and I forgive Tipper for being a moral harpy with lyrics to music in the 80s. She was trying to get warning labels on heavy metal music. I forgive her. I don't want to judge, but what is this being separated for 15 years and having like a live-in woman, Al? You're separated for 15 years, but you're in a committed relationship with another. You're cheating on divorce. You are cheating on, I mean, you should do the honorable thing and get a divorce. I know divorce is just a piece of paper. Divorce is just a social construct. Divorce is just something you get to please your parents. But get the divorce, Al. I know men don't like to commit because divorce is so permanent. But you're already involved with another woman, Al, and he won't get the divorce. Well, I guess the old expression is still true. Why drink the milk for free when you can buy the cow and not sell it? I am very depressed, and I think I just proved that to all of you. I will get to the war momentarily. Is that the expression, why drink the milk for free when you can buy the cow and not sell it? I think that's what men say when they don't want to get a divorce, isn't it? I don't know. I've lost my mind. Testimony from Bill Clinton before the committee. The committee asks, when did you first meet Jeffrey Epstein? Let me go large here. Come on, there we go. When did you first meet Jeffrey Epstein? Clinton. I received a call from Larry Summers, president of Harvard. He said, Jeffrey Epstein has this massive airplane. If you will take an hour on the longer legs to talk to him about economics and politics, he will fly you on the airplane. Okay? So this is a photograph of Bill, Jeffrey Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell in the White House during Clinton's first term. We've talked about this. Clinton was asked about the visits and visitors' logs showing how many times Jeffrey Epstein visited the White House. The committee asks, Mr. Epstein visited the White House at least 17 times between 1993 and 1995. Do you have any reason to dispute those numbers? So Clinton was sworn in as president. His first term began in January of 93, and Jeffrey Epstein was visiting the White House, started like a month later. He says, do you have any reason to dispute those numbers? 17 times. Clinton, no, I don't. I didn't know he was coming. Huge numbers of people come and go. I think that most presidents don't have a clue who's coming in every day. And then during the testimony, Clinton testified that Epstein was probably waved into the White House by a staffer named Mark Middleton, who committed suicide in 2022. So we don't get to ask, were you the one letting Jeffrey Epstein in? Mark Middleton, he said, Mark Middleton waved him in. He committed suicide 4 years ago. But Clinton said he didn't think the suicide was in any way related to whatever association Middleton might have had with Epstein. Well, this is sweet. This is a note. It was shown during Clinton's testimony. If you watched C-SPAN on Monday, you would have seen this. This is a note that Bill Clinton wrote to Jeffrey Epstein's mother in 1995. He was president. Epstein was a donor. And Paula Epstein, Jeffrey's mother, who raised him so well, was sick. And this is what Bill Clinton wrote to Jeffrey Epstein's mother. This was March 30th, 1995. To Paula, get well soon. Hang in there, Bill Clinton. Hang in there, Bill Clinton. If only he had said that to Jeffrey Epstein in 1995 instead of 2019. I think a lot of people would be happy. So Bill Clinton was asked about the hang in there to Jeffrey Epstein's mother. Committee. By 1995, Clinton and Epstein were sufficiently chummy that he wrote a get well soon note to Epstein's ailing mother. Clinton, it looks like my handwriting, but I don't recall. I have written get well notes to lots of people I didn't know and had never met. So, yeah. The thrust of Clinton's testimony is he became friends with Epstein after leaving the White House. Remember, Clinton left the White House in 2001, January of 2001. Clinton said Epstein helped him, Clinton, raise money for his charitable work, and then Clinton cut ties with Epstein decades ago, way before Epstein was arrested the first time down in Florida for soliciting a minor for sex. Clinton testified the relationship with Epstein was strictly about raising money and using the airplane. He relied on Epstein for 2 years, he said, to introduce him to people who would donate to the Clinton Global Institute, the Clinton Global Initiative. This is Clinton's signature post-presidential accomplishment. These are some of the photos, let me go large here, of Clinton that you all have seen in the Epstein file. Hillary ordered Bill to move back in with her so she can make him sleep on the couch. That's how pissed off she is at Bill. So these are some of the photos of Clinton in the Epstein files while they're traveling around the world for charity. And Bill testified these women were all charity cases. No, you know what? It's not funny. He was asked about the photo of him in the hot tub. Clinton said he had no idea who this woman is. You see him in the hot tub? I think her name is Squareface. No, she's been redacted. I apologize. There's nothing funny here. But she's been redacted. That's not her face. He testified that this picture was taken in a hotel in Brunei, where he, the Secret Service, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell were all being housed by the Sultan of Brunei when Clinton went on an AIDS fact-finding mission. Okay. This is Bill swimming with Ghislaine Maxwell in the same hotel. According to his testimony, Clinton said this was not a private swim. People were there. So I'm going to defend the Clintons. Thing to remember is Jeffrey Epstein was a predator in all manifestations of a predator. He was a sexual predator. He was a human predator. He took a lot of photographs of rich and powerful men. According to Virginia Giuffre, who was trafficked to the former Prince Andrew 3 times, where she said he raped her, she said Epstein, who took this picture of then Prince Andrew with Virginia Giuffre, she said Jeffrey Epstein always had a camera nearby, always snapping pictures. Compromat? Giuffre also said that Epstein had hidden cameras everywhere, including the toilets. She said Epstein showed her the room where the banks of television monitors recorded rich and powerful men coming and going. They were coming in the bathroom and going, or going in the bathroom and coming. I mean, he had videos. She also said she saw Bill Clinton twice on Epstein's island with 2 women, but during his testimony, Clinton said he never visited the island. More from Clinton's testimony. We were friendly, talking about Jeffrey Epstein. We were friendly, but I didn't know him well enough to say we were friends. Clinton said, I thought Epstein was odd. There was always something a little holding back. That's what he said. So this is one of the many photographs of Clinton on board the Lolita Express. Now, this is right after he was president, right after Monica Lewinsky, and he's been photographed on the Lolita Express with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you think Bill Clinton is stupid enough to allow himself to get photographed with a sexual predator? If he knew Jeffrey Epstein was a sexual predator, do you think Clinton is that stupid to allow himself to get photographed? Now, it's important to remember this. So this is one of the photos of Clinton on board the Lolita Express, or getting on board. It's important to remember that while Bill and Hillary are all over the Epstein files, there is not a single allegation that he did anything illegal, untoward, sordid. The same cannot be true about Donald Trump. We know there is evidence, lots and lots of evidence, implicating Donald Trump. I said on previous shows, evidence isn't proof, but evidence is a reason to investigate. And there's plenty of evidence that Donald Trump sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl. There isn't proof, but there's evidence. So, this is the famous New York Magazine profile that everybody talks about. It's about Jeffrey Epstein from October 28th, 2002. It's written by Landon Thomas, and it was Jeffrey Epstein entering the world stage, the Playboy billionaire. And this is the headline. Jeffrey Epstein, international money man of mystery, terrific guy. Donald Trump booms from a speakerphone. He's a lot of fun to be with. Okay? This is Trump's, some want to compare Trump, because Clinton's in this. So this is Trump's quote about Jeffrey Epstein. Quote, Epstein likes to tell people that he's a loner, a man who's never touched alcohol or drugs, and one whose nightlife is far from energetic. And yet, if you talk to Donald Trump, a different Epstein emerges. Quote, I've known Jeff for 15 years. This is 2002. I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. Trump booms from a speakerphone. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it, Jeffrey enjoys his social life. That was 2002. So this is, same article, this is about Bill Clinton, October 28th. It's the article about Jeffrey Epstein and Epstein's relationship with Bill Clinton, October 28th, 2002. Remember, Clinton left office in January of 2001. What attracted Clinton to Epstein was quite simple. He had a plane. He has a couple, in fact, the Boeing 727, in which he took Clinton to Africa, and for shorter jaunts, a black Gulfstream. Blah, blah, blah. Clinton had organized a week-long tour of South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Rwanda, and Mozambique to do what Clinton does. So when the president's advance man, Doug Band, pitched the idea to Epstein, Epstein said, sure. As an added bonus, Kevin Spacey, a close friend of Clinton's, all right, that's a little problematic, and actor Chris Tucker came along for the ride. Okay, remember the name Doug Band. I'm going to be getting to Doug Band in a second, so remember the name Doug Band. Committee, have you flown on the Lolita Express with Jeffrey? Clinton, I don't know what that is. I brought people who work with me and the Secret Service with me. I have never signed off Secret Service protection. In other words, if I did anything untoward, the Secret Service would know about it. Committee, did you ever witness or become aware of sexual abuse of any kind? Clinton, I did not. Okay. So Epstein collected rich and powerful men by any means necessary, by giving them whatever they needed. Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein were friendly between 2002 and 2003. Trump and Epstein were friends for decades. The two of them prowled casinos, hotels, and nightclubs together. Okay? So this is the famous photo from the Epstein files of Bill Clinton getting a neck massage. This was the first thing Pam Bondi released. I mean, we didn't get anything on Bill Clinton, anything on Donald Trump. This was the first thing out of the chute when Pam Bondi released the Epstein files. One of the tricks Epstein played on men who flew on his jet was Epstein would force the women he was trafficking, he would force the women he was trafficking to dress like flight attendants so that the men who met them didn't know they were being trafficked. So this is a photo of Shantae Davis, one of Epstein's victims, and she is giving Bill Clinton a neck massage on the trip to Africa. He had a neck spasm, and the first thing Ghislaine Maxwell said is, let Shantae rub your neck. She's great. And Bill Clinton thought she was a flight attendant. He didn't know she was being trafficked. So the massage starts. Ghislaine Maxwell says, oh, no, get a massage if your neck hurts. And the minute the massage started, Ghislaine Maxwell miraculously had a camera and immediately snapped a picture. Compromat. Shantae Davis, the one giving the neck massage, was a victim of Epstein's and Ghislaine Maxwell's. They ordered her to dress like a flight attendant on the Lolita Express. So men like Bill Clinton didn't know they were being trafficked. So He was asked about this photo. Committee, did you ever receive a massage or have physical contact from her or anyone else on that trip? Clinton, the problem I remember from that trip was that my neck had spasms. They offered to help, and I let them help. I never saw anybody do anything wrong. I thought they were flight attendants. When asked if he was aware that this woman was an abuse survivor, Bill Clinton stated, I was not aware at the time, but I am now. Then Clinton added, I wish Shantae had told me I liked her, unquote. Clinton testified he had no idea that Epstein was trafficking women. He said his friendship with Epstein was between the years 2002, 2003. He added Epstein's public prosecutions began in 2008, 5 years after they had any contact. Clinton testified that Epstein had a Boeing 727 that would be appropriate for a former president and his Secret Service entourage to travel safely on. Clinton said Epstein flew him, Clinton, on that jet for 3 or 4 international fact-finding missions. And it was a quid pro quo set up by Larry Summers. The deal was Epstein provided the free flights, and in exchange, Clinton would sit with Epstein for an hour on the flight to discuss world affairs, and by so doing, lend a level of prestige that Epstein needed to perpetuate the myth that Jeffrey Epstein was influential and knew the rich and powerful. That is what predators do. By any means necessary, they provide drugs, women, boys, or in this case, a jet in exchange for what? Favors or compromise or burnishing your image while also getting compromise? A neck massage is the only compromise Epstein had on Bill Clinton. Clinton said Epstein visited Clinton once at Clinton's Harlem office. He said Clinton said, I visited Epstein's Manhattan townhouse once. Asked if he ever saw the painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress and red pumps hanging in Epstein's entryway to the Manhattan townhouse, Clinton said no. Clinton said he considered existence of the painting hanging in the hallway to be speculative. He didn't believe it was actually hanging in the hallway. Clinton said he did add to a happy 50th birthday book for Jeffrey Epstein, but he said, I did that because that's what ex-presidents do. Clinton was asked if Epstein and Maxwell had any intelligence connections with either the CIA or the Mossad. Like he's going to answer that. Clinton said no. Clinton said he never witnessed anything sordid, but he said Clinton said he found Epstein odd and that their relationship ended after 2 years because Clinton was able to find somebody else with jets, and because Clinton said he felt Epstein wasn't interested in philanthropy. Clinton said, I got a sense that Jeffrey Epstein didn't share my passion for healing the world. So then there is the issue of Virginia Giuffre, who died by suicide last year after a horrible car accident. Virginia Giuffre won a settlement said to be worth north of $10 million paid by the royal family to settle a lawsuit against the former Prince Andrew. She accused Prince Andrew of rape. Giuffre claimed she saw Bill Clinton on Epstein's Island twice. Clinton, during his testimony before the House Oversight Committee, was shown Virginia Giuffre's diary where she writes, Bill Clinton was on Epstein's Island twice with 2 girls. From the former president's testimony, they say Virginia Robert Giuffre writes, Bill Clinton met 2 times on the island with 2 girls. Clinton says it's not true. I was never on the island. And then there is the issue of Clinton's friendship with Ghislaine Maxwell. Just like the former Prince Andrew, Clinton said he was more Maxwell's friend than he was Epstein's. Clinton said his relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell lasted several years after Clinton broke off relations with Epstein. So last month, I told you about the New York Times expose revealing the role that Ghislaine Maxwell played in the launch of the Clinton Global Initiative. In 2004, Ghislaine Maxwell cut a check for $1 million to the public relations firm that ran the 2005 launch of the Clinton Global Initiative. Now, from what I've read, Ghislaine Maxwell was completely broke. Her father, Robert Maxwell, died penniless. That's why he died. So where did she get that $1 million? I think it's implied in the New York Times expose from Jeffrey Epstein. She played an informal role when Clinton was getting the Clinton Global Initiative off the ground in 2004 and 2005. She was helping Clinton raise money. All of this took place nearly 5 years before Epstein's first arrest and almost 15 years before Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest. Okay, so I told you about Doug Band. He worked as Clinton's body man. Band was a law student, I think at Georgetown, and during the early part of Clinton's post-presidency, 2001, 2002, Clinton trusted Doug Band. I think Doug Band by then was now a lawyer. He trusted Doug Band to answer emails for Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton sent 2 emails during his entire presidency. Emails basically just started, or they became popular during his presidency. And he says he sent 2 emails during his entire presidency. And he says, I never use email. Never. Clinton testified that he doesn't think he sent a single email since being president. He said he sent 1 email to Senator John Glenn, who went back up into space, so he sent an email, and some other email, and he said that's the last time he's used email. Now, if you look at the Epstein files, there are several emails from this guy Doug Band, the law student who became Clinton's body man. There are several emails between Doug Band and Ghislaine Maxwell in which Doug Band tells Ghislaine Maxwell, the best way to reach me, Doug Band, is through Bill Clinton's BlackBerry. Clinton testified that Doug Band liked to send emails using Bill Clinton's BlackBerry because Doug Band thought it was, quote, impressive. It gave him a little cachet if he was seen using a former president's BlackBerry. So Bill Clinton, who doesn't use a BlackBerry, but he had a BlackBerry, doesn't use email, he said to Doug Band, here, you use my BlackBerry and you can tell people it's mine and send messages. Hard to believe Hillary got busted for being careless with her email server. So there are several emails between Doug Band and Ghislaine Maxwell that have come out in the recent Epstein dump, revealing the two had a very flirtatious relationship. A lot of sexual, not even innuendo, not even zero entendre. I'm not going to say they were doing anything, but it was very flirtatious. So Doug Band was very close to Clinton during the founding of the Clinton Global Initiative. He claims he told the Clintons to keep away from Ghislaine Maxwell in 2011. He said, strip her from all events. She's bad news. This is when allegations against her and Epstein became more pronounced. That was 2011. Clinton claimed during his testimony he doesn't remember being told by Doug Band to stay away from Maxwell in 2011. He and Doug Band have been estranged since 2012. Clinton reportedly accused Doug Band of trying to cash in on the Clinton name. So now you know who Doug Band is, and that will help you with this part of the testimony. Committee. They read an email from Ghislaine Maxwell to the WJC email account. That would be William Jefferson Clinton email account, claiming she let out a tidbit about what a super stud that you are. Clinton, I never sent one email on it. I think Doug thought it would have cachet if he had an email with WJC on it. I've sent practically no emails. I didn't send or read emails on it. A little irresponsible. I believe him. Where are we? Okay, more questioning about, I'm going to get to the war. More questioning about Clinton's relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. Doug Band claims he warned Clinton about Ghislaine Maxwell in 2011. Clinton said he doesn't remember that. Clinton was then asked why he invited Ghislaine Maxwell to his daughter Chelsea's wedding in 2010. So Jeffrey Epstein's first arrest occurred on July 27th, 2006. Epstein pled guilty in 2008. By 2009, Epstein was already out of prison, rehabilitating his image, and nobody knew, by the time Chelsea Clinton got married, nobody knew about Ghislaine Maxwell's involvement with the sex trafficking. Committee. Ghislaine Maxwell stated that President Clinton was her friend, not Epstein's friend. Is that accurate? Clinton. I'd say that it was accurate to say that I felt closer to her than him. It lasted longer and was more extensive because she started going with a man named Ted Waite, who was a big supporter of the foundation, the Clinton Foundation. Here is Bill Clinton marching his daughter down the aisle in 2010. There is Ghislaine Maxwell. See her? Not with Jeffrey, with her boyfriend. Committee. It's been widely reported that in July of 2010, Miss Maxwell attended your daughter Chelsea's wedding. Clinton, I knew she was there. She and Ted were there. Committee. Why would you allow Ghislaine Maxwell to associate with your daughter? Clinton, we did not know when Epstein was arrested that she was still involved with him. I'm sorry for what she did. I believe the Clintons. I do. I mean, they're problematic, but they don't need to hang out with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell for any reason other than using them for their plane and connections. Then the subject turned to Bill Clinton's friendship with Donald Trump. This is a picture of Bill Clinton golfing with Donald Trump, as well as baseball legend Joe Torre, Rudy Giuliani. I think that's Rudy Giuliani 3 years after Rudy died. And that's Billy Crystal and the mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, and Donald Trump. So he was asked about his friendship with the President of the United States. So the minority counsel, that would be the lawyer asking questions on behalf of the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee. Minority counsel, President Trump asked the Department of Justice to investigate, to distract the American people from his own long-standing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Clinton, the only conversation I had with President Trump about Jeffrey Epstein was in the early 2000s on his golf course. He said, we had some great times, me and Epstein had some great times together over the years, but we fell out all because of a real estate deal. That was Donald's cover story, that they fell out over a real estate deal. This is Bill and Hillary at the 2005 marriage of Donald Trump to his KGB handler, Melania. The Soviet Union fell in, 1989? So they figured it was safe to finally get married. Committee. Why wasn't Clinton, why wasn't Trump a friend? Clinton, I could tell that it was like somebody's talking to you and then they're just checking the box and they got to go do something else. He wanted to know what happened and understand how I got reelected. To the best of my knowledge, she never tried to monetize our relationship. And finally, Clinton was asked when exactly he discovered that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were raping minors, and he talked about that and how to heal these victims. He said, I'm struggling because it's hard to know exactly what I knew when I knew it, given what I've learned since. And then talking about helping survivors and how to prevent future trafficking of minors. He said it should be possible for us to virtually eliminate underage abuse. We just got to figure out what kind of technology we need and what kind of policies. So, of course, Bill wasn't the only one deposed. For some reason, I don't know why, Hillary Clinton was also forced to testify. I have no idea. Oh, I know why. Because there's a woman who was interviewed by the FBI 4 times as recently as 2019. And according to the Epstein file, she said she was sexually assaulted at the age of 14 by Donald Trump. So that's why Hillary Clinton had to testify before the Republican-controlled Epstein committee. So the Clintons had to be deposed. And Hillary Clinton testified she never met Jeffrey Epstein. She never flew on his jet. There are no pictures of her with Jeffrey Epstein. She said she didn't know of any crimes. She found out about them whenever everyone else did. She said she met Maxwell on a few occasions, but they weren't friends. She testified last Thursday. Bill testified on Friday. And as you know, the video and transcript, which we've been poring over, came out on Monday. Jim Comer is the Republican chairman of the Epstein committee. He insists Donald Trump has been fully exonerated. He's the head of the Epstein committee in Congress. And from day one, before he even looked at the Epstein files, he said Trump has been exonerated. And he said that I subpoenaed the Clintons because I want to get to the bottom of how Epstein accumulated his wealth, which is why, you want to find out, where did Epstein's money come from? That's Jim Comer wants to find out. And that's why when billionaire Les Wexner, who Epstein is reported to have stolen $1 billion from, when Les Wexner testified the week before the Clintons did, Jim Comer couldn't be bothered to show up for questioning because he wants to get to the bottom of how Jeffrey Epstein accumulated his wealth. That's why he had Bill and Hillary. It's more important to ask Bill and Hillary about Epstein's wealth than the guy who, for some reason, had $1 billion stolen from him by Jeffrey Epstein and never reported it to the police. No, Jim Comer, no questions. Politico reporting the House Oversight Committee, that's the one Jim Comer heads, they have enough votes right now to subpoena Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. That's after the Lutnick. It's like after this photograph of Lutnick on Epstein Island surfaced last week. You see him? He's on Epstein's, over his left-hand shoulder, like Jiminy Cricket. Always let your conscience not be your guide. That is a photograph, everyone believes, of Howard Lutnick on Epstein Island with several of Epstein's associates. I don't see Lutnick's wife or kids. He said, I only was there for an hour with Epstein, and my wife and kids were there. Maybe that's his wife and kids. He's a billionaire. I would think he could afford a prettier wife and prettier kids. Is that Howard Lutnick? So, I don't know. Looks like Lutnick to me. So the House Oversight Chairman, Jim Comer, told reporters it's now possible I will go ahead and bring Howard Lutnick before the committee. Here is President Trump being asked if his Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, should testify.
Well, Howard would go in and do whatever he has to say. He's a very innocent guy. He's doing a good job.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. And then a few minutes later, Trump added this.
I don't know anything about the Epstein files. You know, I've been fully exonerated.
I've been fully exonerated by the Attorney General and my Deputy Attorney General, both of whom served as my defense lawyers before I gave them these jobs in the Justice Department. I'm fully exonerated. Well, here is Jim Comer, who exonerated, he's the head of the Congressional Committee looking into the Epstein files. This is Republican chairman of the Epstein Committee, Jim Comer, who exonerated Donald Trump before the investigation even began. This is this lapdog, Jim Comer, during a break from Bill Clinton's testimony, coming out all excited, wagging his tail because he wants to exonerate Donald Trump again.
But just wanted to mention something, because I know there's a lot of obsession about President Trump from the media, a lot of curiosity about President Trump from the media. I want to make a statement because they'll probably not mention this when they come out here. Ranking Member Garcia asked President Clinton, quote, should President Trump be called to answer questions from this committee? And President Clinton said, that's for you to decide. And the president went on to say that the president, Trump, has never said anything to me to make me think he was involved. And he met with Epstein. So I know there's a lot of curiosity about President Trump. I thought that was an interesting thing that President Clinton said. So I'll let the Democrats have the podium and they can answer your questions. But
Exonerated.
We'll at the conclusion, the majority will, and we'll answer.
Trump is innocent. Clinton said when I went golfing with Donald Trump, he never mentioned sleeping with teenagers, underage girls, that time I went golfing with him. I mean, everyone knows that if you slept with a 14-year-old girl, if you sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl, you're going to tell that to an ex-president. Everybody knows that. That's the first thing you do is tell everybody that you sexually assaulted a minor. So he's exonerated. He's exonerated. Jim Comer, what a great guy. Well, you know, in the end, as we all know, it's about the victims. It's about the victims. That's why they're holding these hearings. How do we stop human trafficking? Here is a very concerned and serious and sober Republican chairman of the Epstein Committee, Jim Comer, appearing on Fox News the night Hillary testified. Right after Hillary testified, Jim Comer went on Fox News because this is very serious stuff, and we have to worry about the victims. So here is Jim Comer.
You just showed where Bill Clinton was in the hot tub. We showed her that picture, and
she acted like she had no curiosity, wasn't concerned who was in the hot tub with him or any. She didn't know, she said, and she really wasn't concerned. So, you know, there a lot of things she said that I think most Americans will find hard to believe when they watch the video.
What does that have to do with the Epstein files? I'm going to review Hillary's testimony on my next show. Look at him smiling, like he's really trying to get to the bottom of something. Well, Hillary's testimony, I'll get to it on my next show, but suffice to say, Hillary told Comer, the entire purpose of my testimony is to distract from the obvious crimes in the Epstein files, obvious crimes at least alleged to have been committed by Donald Trump, who for some reason remains uninvestigated by your committee and the Department of Justice. I mean, that's just amazing that, I almost want to play that, rewind and watch that again. During her testimony, Hillary asked why the Justice Department won't release all the Epstein files. She said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Actually, when it comes to the Epstein files, you're going to need a stronger disinfectant than sunlight. Then she asked the committee why they refused to extend the same invitation she received to Donald Trump. She asked, why aren't you asking Donald Trump to testify? You're listening to The Mop-Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. We'll get to the war in a little while. Voters in Texas go to the polls today. Well, actually, early voting began on February 17th. It's the Texas primaries. Yes, the midterms have begun. Whether you like it or not, the midterms have begun. Republicans and Democrats are voting today in Texas to pick candidates for governor, senator, and members of the House of Representatives. And this is interesting. Today will be a big test for Kamala Harris to see if she has any muscle in the Democratic Party. How much influence does she have with Democratic voters? She endorsed the great Texas Congresswoman, Jasmine Crockett. She endorsed Jasmine Crockett to be the Democratic nominee for Senate. Crockett served as national co-chair of Kamala Harris's presidential campaign in 2024. She spoke that year at the Democratic convention, and she considers Kamala Harris to be a mentor. So most Democrats are staying out of this primary, but Kamala Harris seems to be gambling on endorsing Jasmine Crockett, and thus, if Jasmine Crockett pulls an upset, she's the underdog here. If Jasmine Crockett wins today, that will signal that Kamala Harris has the clout to push a candidate over the finish line. If Jasmine Crockett wins today, it will be, like I said, an upset, and Kamala Harris is betting then she'll be seen as the deciding factor in Jasmine Crockett winning, and she'll be seen as someone with keen political instinct, and that's something she wants because she's running again in 2028. Jasmine Crockett, the congresswoman, is running against James Tallarico for the Democratic nomination for Senate to run against the incumbent. Well, I'll talk about John Cornyn in a second. He may not win today. But it is generally believed, according to the polling, that Jasmine Crockett will lose to James Tallarico, a 36-year-old state representative from Austin, and he is perceived to have a slight edge over Crockett. He's pushing his Christian faith. He says, my Christian faith is antithetical to the false white Christian nationalism Republicans have been selling. So these are the latest numbers from Emerson. Tallarico has a 5-point lead over Jasmine Crockett, pretty substantial. It's considered a dead heat, but a 5-point lead is outside the margin of error. So if Jasmine Crockett wins, it will be called an upset. On the Republican side, you've got the incumbent, Senator John Cornyn, fighting for his political survival against Ken Paxton, Texas's MAGA Attorney General. We've been over him. I can't even begin. Where do I start with Ken Paxton? So Trump on Friday appeared at a campaign rally in Corpus Christi, Texas, to endorse candidates or get people to vote. He said, I'm not going to get in the middle of this primary. I'm not going to endorse Cornyn. I'm not going to endorse his opponent, his challenger, Paxton. He said, I know who I want to win, but I'm not going to say. He wants Paxton to win. Paxton is going through a nasty divorce. He was caught cheating. He was indicted. The FBI got him, and the state of Texas got him. He's been accused of doing favors for a wealthy real estate donor in return for the real estate donor giving his mistress a job. Somehow he got cleared. Maddie Hayworth is Ken Paxton's daughter, and she recorded a series of ads, campaign ads, calling her father a devoted family man who cheats on my mother. Well, she didn't mention that. But he said, kids, when I was cheating on mommy, I was thinking of her. All right. The primary to watch today is Republican, not the primary. One of the important races to watch in the Texas primary is Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez. He represents Uvalde, Texas. He's facing accusations of carrying on an affair with a staffer who ended up committing suicide last year. There have been calls within the Republican caucus for him to quit right now, before the primary. But Speaker Mike Johnson is working with a one-vote majority. There are two unfilled vacancies. Johnson has a one-vote majority. Democrats need to flip 3 seats in November in order to take control of the House. Right now, Republicans have a one-vote majority in the House of Representatives. So Tony Gonzalez isn't quitting. He's more likely to lose today to his Republican challenger, a gun nut who has a history of racist, anti-LGBTQ, anti-Semitic quotes and makes fun of veterans who commit suicide. That guy's probably going to win today and then become the next congressman from that Uvalde district. This guy lost to Gonzalez in a runoff 2 years ago by about 400 votes, but Donald Trump isn't taking sides. Here is Donald Trump in Corpus Christi on Friday. You know, when the president arrives, the Texas congressional members of the Texas congressional delegation show up, and here is Donald Trump introducing Tony Gonzalez, who is probably going to lose today partly because the woman he allegedly had an affair with committed suicide. Here's Donald Trump introducing him.
Congressman Tony Gonzalez is here. Tony, congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations on your mistress committing suicide. I wish I had that kind of luck. Hey, remember Randy Quaid? That's why Donald Trump said congratulations. Hey, remember Randy Quaid? Here is his brother, the equally talented Dennis Quaid, proving insanity often runs in families.
Hello, Texas, my home state. I love Corpus Christi, and I love Donald Trump.
Thank you, Dennis. Did a great job. Thank you, Dennis. Got a new movie coming out, by the way.
He's got a new movie coming out. What is it, a campaign? Is this a campaign rally or an old episode of the Merv Griffin Show? He's got a new movie coming out. Governor Greg Abbott is also on the ballot, and he's going to win today. You might remember he started the gerrymandering, the redistricting. It all started in Texas, which led to California voting to create 5 new reliably blue congressional seats to cancel out the 5 reliably red ones in Texas. Ron DeSantis, the Republican governor of Florida, has called a special session of his state legislature in order to redraw maps to create new red congressional seats. That was challenged in the state courts, but the Florida State Supreme Court just ruled that DeSantis can go ahead with the April legislative session to redraw the maps. In Maryland, the democratically controlled state house is trying to redraw maps to find reliably blue seats, but this new map is trapped for some reason in the state Senate Rules Committee, even though it's controlled by Democrats. Today's primaries are taking place under the shadow of Donald Trump's illegal attack on Iran. Trump has yet to officially address the people of the United States on what he's doing and why. He gave 14 interviews over the phone with news organizations since the bombing campaign started, and he has been vague as to what he sees as the endgame in Iran. He's now saying he's not even sure whether the existing Iranian power structure will be eliminated. What did I tell you? I said that the day of. I said he's going to declare victory and walk away from this in a few weeks. He doesn't care what happens to Iran. He doesn't care if he breaks Iran into little pieces or if the existing power structure remains intact. They just get new people to assassinate. He doesn't care about Yemen. He walked away from that. He doesn't care about Gaza, Venezuela, Lebanon, Syria. For him, failed states are good for business. He rather have the Iranians fighting among themselves because they're less likely to export jihad to Israel, Gaza, Yemen, wherever. So that's what he wants, and he doesn't care how many people die. We are seeing cracks in the Trump coalition with MAGA isolationists turning on him. Marjorie Taylor Greene said this the day after the Iranian attacks began. She said, now, America is going to be force-fed and gaslighted with all the noble reasons the American peace president and pro-peace administration had to go to war once again this year. Head spinning. Yeah, she's been against it. I'm going to do an entire show on MAGA turning on Trump over the Epstein files and the war. But not today. This is the Mop-Up. I'm David Feldman in New York. Thank you for joining me. Please hit the like button so I remain in your feed and share this episode. So, Operation Epic Fury enters its 4th day of Trump trying to change the subject as the Epstein files remain a stubborn stain on his political bedsheets. It's day 4, and the entire region seems to be on fire. What I'm going to do, because I've been on for 90 minutes, I just want to check and see if there's anything. Okay. All right, nothing has changed. Trump warns of Iranian attack on Saudi oil city and tells Tehran it's too late to talk. Okay, I will continue. I've been doing this for 90 minutes. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Yes, we are. The region seems to be on fire. Secretary of State Marco Rubio telling reporters the hardest hits have yet to come. Trump is warning of a second wave of attacks that will be way more devastating. This, as the killing of the Ayatollah Khomeini ignites the streets throughout the Middle East. On Monday, Israel launched a ground invasion into southern Lebanon to eliminate Hezbollah fighters. Hezbollah is an Iranian-backed paramilitary group in Lebanon. The government of Lebanon is repeatedly asking Hezbollah to put down their weapons. The government of Lebanon is now saying there's only room for one army in our country, but Hezbollah says no. There are reports of missile strikes throughout Lebanon as Israel tries to root out Hezbollah's current leadership. Israel is ordering residents of several villages in southern Lebanon to evacuate in order to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. The United States Embassy, let me go back there. The United States Embassy in Riyadh was hit by 2 Iranian drones that were able to sneak through Saudi airspace. Iran says their missiles destroyed a command building inside a United States air base in Bahrain. 3 American jet fighters were reportedly knocked out of the sky from friendly fire by Kuwaiti soldiers using their air defense systems. 3 jets, 6 pilots, all survived. Fuel tanks were hit by Iranian missiles in Oman. Saudi Arabia's largest refinery has ceased production in order to err on the side of caution. And now we're hearing that Iran is targeting Saudi Arabia's refineries. Qatar's liquid national gas supply lines have been shut down, resulting in the price of gas surging 33% in Europe and Great Britain. This as Iran threatens to set fire to any ship attempting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil must travel in order to be delivered to the rest of the world. It's Saudi Arabia relies on the Strait of Hormuz, the UAE, Kuwait. If they can't get through the Strait of Hormuz, oil gets very expensive. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has warned that he doesn't think America and Israel can do regime change from the sky. He said eventually you need boots on the ground. Donald Trump was warned last week by Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that an attack on Iran won't work because the United States is running short on munitions. But Donald Trump took to social media on Monday telling the world America has unlimited supplies. He said, we're fully stocked for this war to go on as long as I want it to. What do you think? What do you think? 6 United States soldiers have been killed so far, 18 injured. The Pentagon has not been too forthcoming on exactly how they died. We hear reports that 3 were killed. They were all killed in Kuwait. 3 have been confirmed to have been killed by Iranian missiles. During Monday's press conference, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that would be Dan Kane, he said America's air defense systems throughout the region are doing what they're intended to do. He said they're knocking incoming missiles out of the sky. But reporters asked, how can you say that when at least 4 U.S. soldiers were killed by Iranian missiles that were able to sneak past these American missile shields? Pete Hegseth, America's white Christian nationalist Secretary of Defense, took the microphone and said, air defenses, quote, he said, defending the air defense systems, he said, you have air defense and you hit most of it. He's saying most of the time we can knock these missiles out of the sky. There's a great new episode of the Ralph Nader Radio Hour that you should listen to. It's a podcast on these the missile defense system that we sell around the world and how accurate they actually are. Maybe not as accurate as Raytheon wants you to believe. The UAE said Iranian missiles killed 3, injured 68 when got through American-made air defense systems. The American-made air defenses knocked out 8 cruise missiles on Monday over the UAE. And these are the numbers. 161 out of 174 ballistic missiles were knocked out of the sky. And they were able to knock out 645 out of 689 drones. So that's what they're admitting to. What do you think the real numbers are? There are reports now that the U.S. Embassy in Kuwait has been hit by an unmanned Iranian drone. What are we spending? Trillions past 15 years on these air defense weapons? We talked about the 165 elementary school children reportedly killed in a strike in southern Iran. It was believed at the time that Israel had done that. Now we're hearing reports that it was an American airstrike. Marco Rubio denied the United States was intentionally hitting civilian infrastructure. 9 hospitals have reportedly been hit by the United States and Israel. 5 of the 9 were in Tehran, 4 others in 4 other hospitals throughout Iran. And finally, Iranian Red Crescent reporting that 787 have been killed so far by Israeli and American airstrikes in Iran. So that number is probably way higher, but by the time we started, the Iranian Red Crescent put the number at 787 killed in Iran by Israeli and American airstrikes. Trump telling the New York Post on Monday he's not ruling out the possibility of committing U.S. troops to fight in Iran. Quote, I don't have the yips with respect to boots on the ground. Every president says there will be no boots on the ground. I don't say it. I don't have the yips. That's a golf term. I don't have the yips. Troops on the ground. Only 12% of Americans favor sending U.S. ground troops into Iran. So I don't mean to trivialize anything that's going on by making a prediction, but I suspect with only 12% of Americans in favor of sending U.S. ground troops, I think Trump is going to keep bombing till he runs out of ammunition and declare victory. I think there'll be new leaders in Iran, but it's going to pretty much remain the same. There won't be the regime change, and the oppression will begin again, and Trump will blame the Iranian people for not rising up and creating a free and open society. I gave you a chance. I killed the Ayatollah, and you did nothing with it. That's what rapists do. They blame the victims. And finally, let's remember the Iranian Red Crescent reporting 787 Iranians have been killed so far by Israeli and American airstrikes. That's the number we're hearing now. You know that's going to be more. It probably already is. And that's your money. Those are your tax dollars being used to kill those Iranians. And are they going to be better off? Are the Iranian people going to be better off because of this? Is anybody going to be better off because of this? I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Call your members of Congress. Please like this episode so I remain in your feed. Please subscribe to my newsletter. Subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell because I keep irregular hours. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room. I can't thank you enough for listening to me. Thank you. And I'm going to do a show very soon. Thank you. Oh, leave a comment if I made any mistakes. I correct myself. Thank you.